Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome Laurette Klier, the founder of Nana's Books. Welcome, Laurette. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Lance. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So, Laurette, I introduced you as the founder of Nana's Books, and there may be a viewer or listener right now who's not familiar with Nana's Books, but we highly recommend they become familiar because they are so instrumental in helping loved ones. And there are just so many varieties and different, subjects, and just, they're incredible. They really are. But I'm going to let you tell us why they're incredible and what Nana's Books are.
Thank you so much. Honestly, the books are meant for families and for clinicians and communities of care. And they really sprang from the need that I found by accident. I was helping care for my mother-in-law who had Lewy body dementia, lived with Lewy body, and was living in memory care at the end. And leading up to that, she was always a very avid reader, and that no longer was anything she could access. And it was very difficult. She was very dispirited. So as a former educator, my job was really to provide resource people with just the right book, just the right program at just the right time, kind of the Goldilocks of programming. So when it came to my own mother-in-law, I thought, I'm going to just try to put together some books that she could enjoy and she could engage with. And she loved art and literature and just beauty in all of its forms. So I started to put together these little books, and she was in a Sunrise in Massachusetts and had, beautiful care. Things were very difficult during COVID because we were essentially locked out. But in the lead up to that, I would bring in, my twins at the time were, middle schoolers, and I'd bring them in with these books, and they could really, really engage with her and go very deep on just funny things, happy things, things about her past. And I just thought, there is something to this. This is so elemental. It's just bringing her so much joy. She can speak clearly and with specificity about her neighborhood and her early life and just her motherhood and her whole journey. And in that process, I learned so much about her, as did my children and my husband. He's her son, so that was quite something, saying something. And, he was the youngest of 6. So you kind of run out of gas a little bit by that 6th child. So he learned all kinds of things about her and resurrected quite a bit of joy on this road. And that was how the books were born. But the way they help people is that they give people the really just resonant imagery and, the visuals and the auditory, that social soothing stimulation of poetry and prose and things that connect with their identities. So I think that's the magic. I think that's how they work. They address the soul and the spirit.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, I have several copies here, and we've handed them out, whether it's to families we help or families that come to some of our seminars, or even to our church, because there is a series or a category or a subject really of interest to anybody, which I think is what makes them so remarkable. I want to talk a little bit, though, about the post-COVID world that we're living in. And there's a great deal of attention that's being paid to loneliness, social isolation, in people of all ages. But I understand that, your series came about during the pandemic to help your family bridge that gap, like you were just talking about. But how is these books also helping other families who are dealing with the isolation and loneliness and, maybe not even getting that stimulation or engagement that, we also desperately need?
Yeah, it's definitely a conduit for those types of connected conversations. I think when you have issues with expressive language and you're having trouble with word finding and your short-term memory, it's very dispiriting, very debilitating, and you can't partake and hold up your quote unquote your end of the conversation. And people shut down. There's a whole, phenomena called locked in syndrome where people, they really do, they are not verbal at a certain point. Sometimes it's organic, it has to do with the brain. Sometimes it's a psychosocial phenomenon, it varies. But I've had people tell me that my mom hasn't said anything in 2.5 years. And we talked for well over an hour today. And I just thought, on the days that it's hard to push forward as a solo entrepreneur, those are the comments that make me press on, because I realize that they do have the key to, in many instances, to give people that invitation back into the human conversation, which is so vital. And, you were mentioning post-COVID, the Surgeon General and all the different big pharma companies, and everybody is recognizing that depression, anxiety, social isolation, it's on the rise. And what can we do for people virtually or in person? Now we're getting further into telehealth and telemedicine, and people are, visiting with loved ones via, their computers. And this is a great modality for that. I've got the library is completely digitized. I can show that to you, screen share if you like. It's really, really geared toward opening that window, that vista into, breaking down the fourth wall of long-term care. Or if you're isolated you're aging in place in any of those settings, you don't take a garden walk or walk the halls of a museum or see the different things that you used to, in your day-to-day life. So this really helps break down those barriers to communication and gives people that beautiful vista that they, maybe it's for them, it's the seaside. Maybe for them, it's the moors of Scotland, or it could be, the downtown of their hometown. And I think the key element that I haven't discussed is these are based in genre paintings. People say, what do you mean by that? So genre paintings and genre art has to do with anything with the cadence of the day. Coming home from work at the end of the day and your children rush to greet you, or first loves, bringing home baby, your military service, any of the things on the road of life, the empty nest, which I'm experiencing now. When those stories are retold to you and you see those visuals and you hear the poetry about, let's say, Robert Burns, we just had Burns night, about, my love is like a red, red rose. That just strikes a chord with people. They haven't heard that, let's say, in 25 years or 10 years. And it just comes flooding back, and people just sit there, and they just connect, and right. Tears roll, and it touches the spirit. And I think that we can do more than cognitive stimulation with, let's say, brain games, which are great. This is spiritual stimulation.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to talk too a little bit more about the books, and I don't think it does it justice, and it's almost too simplistic. It's not just looking at pictures. You talk about adaptive reading. Why don't you explain what you mean when you talk about adaptive reading?
Sure. So I think it's more than that there's a large image, and there are picture books out there. Many of them are very good. This is more than that. The format is very respectful of the challenges of not just people living with dementia and cognitive challenges. It's respectful of our elders. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of white space on the perimeter. It's all based in science. There is a complete, let's say, poem, but it's a short poem, all contained within the one page. So it's manageable. You're not fumbling with a book or with the, scrolling, let's say, on a computer. Everything is right there. Plus, it's side by side with the visual, which is very, very deeply tied to the text, or let's say the prose or the poetry. So it really elicits that emotional response and just those memories. And what I choose, when in choosing the art, people say, how do you choose the imagery and how do you choose the words? The imagery I choose because it's got depth of field. It's a fully realized scene. Let's say it's a family, or it's it's a mother and child, and they're in the countryside, and you can see things in the distance, and perhaps there's a baby lamb, or there are buttercups, or if it's in the spring, there are snowdrops, or there are all these resonant things that people recall, and you just have no idea what's going to spark that moment for them and that moment of joy in their lives, and what is what is elemental in their minds and in their faith tradition, let's say, and in their family, in their past, and what part of the world they grew up in. So these things touch all of those things, and it has a lot to do with the cueing, the visual cues, the auditory cues, and the combination thereof. The layouts, the fonts are hyper legible. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. Lance, it's so intentional. I know it seems deceptively simple, and in a way, it is, because it's meant to be, especially easy to use and easy to engage. When I show you the way the site looks, for people to join and use the library shelves, it's all meant to be so easy and bring you right into the works themselves. So there's so much that goes into it.
That's wonderful. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and we can go through the site for our viewers.
So just to give you, I'm going to pretend, Lance, that you are going to read with a person in your life, and you want to show them, a little something of the past. This is just all the books together. On the site, they're actually on the online bookshelves. They're all together, and they are. I want to show you. They're categorized. That's the Zoom, but I want to get you in here. The digital library. Okay, I'm going to move you. Okay, so pretend we are visiting with one another, and we're just scrolling through the bookshelves, and you can see there are multiple cultures, multiple faith traditions, spirituality, holidays, everything from golf, vocations, avocations, what's something that appeals to you. And I can open that book and just show you how simply you can dive in yourself, or somebody can do it with, let's say, friends in long-term care, or their neighbor, or their daughter at home.
How about American history? Book. Do you have American history?
I have American history. So we have books with, for veterans. I've got, we can do books for veterans. I've got books that have, different resonant themes that are, like, for example, this one in the lower right, The Soul Remembers. These are spirituals, and they are all the ones that from, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, to Over Jordan, to all those different. So that has a historic element. The Every Man a Mulligan has to do with golf, and there's actually some of that history there. I've got holidays. What appeals to you? I've got haiku, poetry.
How about the one for veterans? That's a good one.
Okay, so I've got a number for veterans. So do you want to do this one? Is, you can see how it comes right up, and it's large format. And if it comes up, you'll see on the bookshelves themselves on my site, you can see that symbol there. That means they're voice enabled. So, and they're beautifully voice enabled with Nikki Jordan of Mirador Magazine. She did she voice enabled the books. So I'll open one for you, and we can listen along. So all 5 branches of the U.S. military are represented.
Send me away with a smile. Little girl, don't cry.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
I must say goodbye. Don't you hear the bugle call? And the fife and the drum beats all? With the flag wave over us all, though I love you so, it is time to go. And the soldier in me you'll find, when on land or sea, many boys like me. You would not have me stay behind? So send me away with a smile, little girl. Brush the tears from eyes of brown. It's all for the best, and I'm off with the rest, with the boys from my hometown.
So you can see how these are.
It may be forever we
There's
part,
more
little
text
girl.
here in this particular book. But all the poems, you can just sit there by yourself and enjoy these.
The stars and stripes forever.
So that's
Let martial note in triumph float.
That is a type of a book that you could enjoy. You could also go back to the digital library.
America,
for
I
veterans,
love
you can also
Amid
enjoy, let's say,
clover. 'Twas just a little over 100 years ago.
Close that one.
A handful of strangers. They faced many dangers.
Try to close that book
to make their country grow.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay,
that's great.
Open the shelves back up. Well, I've got you on loud. Okay, and then if you wanted to do something, let's say that had less text and also for veterans, you could do a sing-along with a picture book of, you can see all the backgrounds are very intentional, just brings people right into that mood.
Yeah.
And you can see their large format, and these, so you can have a sing-along with your friends, or with, on, let's say this is on a holiday, or you're with your neighbors, or with someone in your community, or your dad, or you just want to immerse yourself in these patriotic songs. They're just really just very deeply, deeply enmeshed in our psyche and our national sentiment and so forth. So it's just really, really nice to have these. And then, you can see, oh, you're looking at this on the one level that, you're said, oh, I didn't realize it was written by this person, or I didn't realize that, this song actually originated in the UK, or maybe your mom is just taking in the little girl with the newspaper hat, but maybe you're thinking about the words and what's going on in the world today and what's happening. And it's great. It's like a Pixar movie where the adult can have a tear in their eye because they're understanding the adult theme that has to do with, the road of life. And then your child, when you're at a Pixar movie, is thinking about the storyline and so forth. So this is like that, in that way that the care partner and let's say their young daughter and their older mom, that's, let's say in her 90s, everyone in that constellation has something that they can enjoy when they share these books, and when they think about it from their perspective. So it gives that intergenerational connection a real boost, and it helps people to really have a good sense of their person, sometimes, like in my case, for the first time. So, again, if you like art, for example, this is a book that I did by request. I work with a company in Canada that works with First Nations peoples, and these are prayers to the Great Spirit. And every tribe of the Americas has their own iconography, their own, as you can see, their own sartorial perspective, their own, as you can see, the backgrounds are very organic, and their own prayers. And so these are different ones, and they all have to do with nature and the cycle of life. So that's that metaphor. It's that metaphor for, beginnings, endings, walking into the sunlight, the dawn of your life, and so forth. So it's about walking along together and having these experiences together. And again, I feature women, children, men, families, and it really is just about the human story and so many different configurations. And that is kind of and again, prayers that are this isn't the format of the digital library, this is just a sampler for you, but it's a little something for everybody that we can all relate to. These are Jewish proverbs. I've got humorous stories, but I can show you that even in the golf, for every man a mulligan. A mulligan, what I mean by that is a mulligan is a second chance.
Right.
A mulligan is a little bit of grace. So I even say, as you can see, and the backgrounds are very intentional as well, in golf and in life, a mulligan is a tiny bit of grace. Mm-hmm. And I think at times, especially when we're caregiving, we need that. As you can see, there's humor here. And it's, there are witticisms, but they're all grounded in something kind, something sweet, something memorable, something that we can, we can relate to, and that is resonant.
Right.
And something that will bring somebody back. And, and your culture is represented, and your faith traditions represented, and, any of the things that were meaningful to you, you can find in the library. So that's kind of a little bit of a background for.
Do you have a favorite, Laurette?
Do I have a favorite? Oh, Lance, that's hard. You know what? I think my favorite is this one. It was my first one before I really got deep into this. And this one I chose because it had to do with the milestones on the road of life. And this one's also voice enabled. The poetry is all voice enabled. Sorry, I'm trying to get this open all the way. But I love this one because it really does give you it's just melodic,
Afternoon
and it really takes you into the countryside and just to the as I like to say, the dappled sunlight of your past.
I will touch 100
so let's see if you can play this a little louder.
And not pick one. I will look at cliffs and clouds with quiet eyes. Watch the wind bow down the grass and the grass rise. And when the lights begin to show up from the town, I will mark which must be mine and then start down.
Just to give you a sense of...
I would be true. I would be true, for there are those who trust me. I would be pure, for there are those who care. I would be strong, for there is much to suffer. I would be brave, for there is much to dare. I would be friend of all, the foe, the friendless. I would be giving and forget the gift. I would be humble, for I know my weakness. I would look up and love and laugh and lift.
That's great.
So that's essentially the type of messaging that I like to, give people, because it really is, we're all, human and deeply flawed and trying to, get it right. And if we can sit together and have some of these conversations, and they're not all, that deeply, serious. Like, for example, this was my second book. This will be the last one, but I just wanted to kind of show you. This one is great for... my mother-in-law was from South Boston, from an Irish family, and she just loved this book because it had the wit and wisdom of Ireland. And, who can't relate to mothers hold their children's hands for just a little while and their hearts forever, and that little crocheted dress, and this lady with her pipe, and in the north of Ireland. And you can see that beware of people who dislike cats. But I want to show you something in the back of the book, which I think is so neat. It's hard sometimes, even with the cueing and the imagery, sometimes at the end, you want to linger and have a little bit of conversation. So I just want to show you at the end of the book, what I have in every single book in the digital library is a conversation guide. And here it is. I'm getting to the back here. And as you can see, my books are longer than most because it might strike your fancy on page 10 or 12, or you only make it to page 5 and just have this wonderful conversation. Or it might take you a little longer and you might find something that resonates with you later in the book. So for example, in my conversation guide, it's a book chat. There's a spine. Let's find different elements. There are different fun facts. There's an author share at the bottom. I share something. So this is very, very intentional as well. I don't ask any questions of anyone because I don't want them to be interrogated or put on the spot or have to come up with anything. I make declarative statements, and that, Tom Kitwood with, his whole person-centered care, his theories, and Oliver James with contented dementia, they really drove home with me that you don't ask a lot of questions. You provide people with the things that are their favorites or their quote unquote special care and that speak to them. And you provide them, you make declarative statements, you share, you give them the, the invitation, and then you see where it goes from there. And then they can find success within that framework. And it's not it doesn't cause the stress or any of the, the feelings of, let's say, inadequacy or the change that they perhaps don't have the type of, of the faculty that they used to. So it helps everyone find success. And that is, I'm going to move out of screen sharing here. So that is really elemental in, in Nana's books. So that's what I do. I try to give people that art, that science, that they can put together these moments of joy. for themselves and their families.
That's wonderful, Laurette. What is the feedback though that you're getting from families? Because I'm assuming there must just be some incredible feedback that you're getting that must be really satisfying and helping to just, affirm that you're making an incredible difference in these lives.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so nourishing for me to keep going with it, because, and that's why I keep creating more and more books, because people say that, there's never been a book for an LGBTQ elder, and I have two of them, and I've never seen myself or, in anything they call LGBTQ elders Generation Silent. So, or they say people that, are in, let's say people that I've worked with in, let's say, Baptist homes, they say, I've never seen myself represented so clearly in the gospel. And and you've got, people of color and people that have been in service, and it's honorific, it's dignified, it's done, with care. And I appreciate the care that you took to compile these, or to make these anthologies for us. And, it's just, it's such a gift in my life, Lance. I have to be straight with you on that. And it's something that I never imagined that I was getting involved in. And again, it was just very, very literally tripping down that path. Sure. I every day is something new. And again, like this summer, I found out that the digital library, when it was in beta format, just a test format, I submitted it and received a National Mature Media Award for a resource for caregivers. So that was a hugely affirming thing. Sure. And things along those lines have been, the National Society for Certified Senior Advisors, have recognized the books. So it's just, long days, but real happiness in the heart.
I want to, before I get on to my next question here, I want to just kind of see if you would kind of share the structure around the books, because you do have such a varying degree of topics and subjects and even issues. How do you go about compiling a book on a topic maybe you're not as familiar with, maybe like the Native American books? Or
again, I as I said, I think that a lot of times somebody will come to me, like Kin Capsule in Canada is working with Indigenous cultures and Indigenous affairs councils, and they said, I work with them and help them with their legacy program, which is kind of a platform on which you can, keep your memories for yourself, for your family. And it's very purpose driven because you're doing it together. So they said, do you have anything for this truly underserved population? And I thought, this is something I'd love to do. So I, know a little bit about the natural spirit, that focus. And we've got here in Connecticut, the Mashantucket Pequot Reservation, and we've got the Mohegan Reservation, and they've got this big, we've got the up in Uncasville here. It's a large part of our community. So I thought, wow, I've been exposed to that in my work before when I was grant writing, and I've worked with their community before, and I thought I'd love to do that. So I just went to all of the literature around the Great Spirit and just the different spiritual elements, the natural elements, and what would be most resonant with the people that are aging and are, whether they're living on a reservation or they're living, in homes, in communities. What would be something that they could bring in and they could just really have, let's say, that connected moment of joy in the evening, these are prayers that are deeply meaningful to them, and they could see the prayers and the imagery from other tribes and other nations. And so that's an example. So I really do chase down, the best that I can find in the images. And like, if you notice in that book, I wanted people that were making eye contact with you. I wanted people that I didn't want it to be about, let's say, the implements of war and the headdresses and things like that. I wanted it to be about the humanity and about the day-to-day life of the family. And that's it, and to give people that vista into just that beauty. And when you see those babies that are, swaddled so beautifully, and their clothing is just absolutely designed and executed with such incredible care, you think about the society and the community that they live live and lived in. And you think this is deeply humanizing and deeply human, because from cradle to grave, there was that love, that affection, and, again, that transcendence into the spirit world and into the future. And if I could illuminate that, that was my goal in that, and to show people for their truly human selves.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's really honorable and just awe-inspiring, Laurette, what you're doing with Nana's books. What any exciting things you want to share with us that's next in the series for Nana's books?
A couple of things. So the digital library will be available, in fully executed form, probably within the next 10 days or so. That's why I've been pretty scattered. I apologize. You've been most patient with me wrapping up here in preparation for this. And we're going to have a series of talks, you and I, about spirituality in care, long-term care, and for the distance, and not just in home care, across the spectrum of care. So that's something we've been putting together. That's very exciting to me. I've got 2 books now, in addition to the digital library. I've got 2 books that are spiral bound, that are for when you take your mom to go live in a community, or let's say to an adult day center, or for respite. It's a book that accompanies her or your dad or your husband to, it's beyond their medical chart. It's beyond, it has to do with their likes and dislikes and preferences, and their really, really elemental things about them that can really trigger these relationships, these conversations, and just so much better care. Yeah. Care that's much more tailored to their actual needs, and to make those connections and conversations. When you learn that this woman in the room next to you is from the Bronx, and you grew up in the Bronx, and you have 1,000 things to talk about, but you lived side by side on the hallway in long-term care, or you were going to a chair aerobics class with somebody for all this time, and you've never had that conversation. And now that you have, you're just fast friends, and that nourishes the soul and the spirit. I want to talk about building bridges and giving people the tools with which to do that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. If you were to summarize Nana's books in a sentence or two, how would you summarize it yourself?
I think that I have found over time, initially, I thought about the cognitive stimulation and giving my mother-in-law that boost and that engagement with things she loved, and reading in particular, that ritual of turning the pages and just interacting with a book. What I've come to find is that what we really truly need is soul tending and spiritual stimulation. And that's kind of where the books have taken me. And I really believe that that's what these books are about, soul tending.
That's wonderful. Well, final question today, Laurette, because we're getting ready to start this series here shortly. And I really encourage viewers and listeners. I think they're really going to enjoy it. Like you said, it's going to be on spirituality and how it really joins hand in hand with the care of our loved ones. But for today, the last question would be, if we weren't going to talk for the next 5 years and we ran into each other somewhere, where would Nana's books be then?
Oh, that's a tough one. First of all, I'd be happy to see you, because, your kids are young and my kids are, so we're a little bit, you and I talk about that, the road of life ourselves. So I'd be asking you about that first and foremost. And secondly, I'd love to see the books in the hands of people that will love them, in libraries, in settings where people gather. And, the stigma I think that the stigma and the lack of good resources go hand in hand. Like when I talk with Nikki Jordan at Mirador Magazine, we're partner publications in many ways, we're friends. We really do talk about how, wouldn't it be great if people could have these types of resources at their fingertips, so that they could catalyze these conversations and break down those walls, because people don't know where to begin.
Right.
And this gives them, that first step and that start with their person and with their community. And it really, really unites people, and it can unite somebody with their grandchild.
Well, and I was
the first time.
I was just going to say, I could see, having younger children, it's sometimes hard to explain if, a grandparent doesn't recognize them anymore, or why is grandpa acting that way? And they sometimes tend, being younger children, they want to kind of stay away because, they're scared and they're unsure. And it's hard to explain that, even for adults to explain to a child, because a lot of times adults don't understand it themselves that well either. But having like Nana's books as that resource, it kind of bridges that gap. Like you said earlier, the children could be looking at the pictures or reading, and it gives them some, commonality and, mutual shared interest with a grandparent for them to bond over. So I think it's a great resource in that aspect too.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it's really, in a way, metaphorically, you're handing back the talking stick to that elder who has stories to tell and has a song in their heart and, really has this great wisdom to impart. It's almost just about getting that conversation started. And once you do, and it's so nourishing for the elder themselves because they feel once again like relevant, involved. They feel like they have this level of, expertise in a certain area or many areas. And it's so unhealthy to keep that bottled within yourself. And especially when you're in life review and you're looking over, the sum total of your life and your days and what was it all about. And for you to be able to have these moments with people that care about you, or when you're forming these new relationships, it really does make it all worthwhile and to have made sense because you were able to, sew that up in a way where you can look back at the stitches and say, this was a life well lived. This was something that I can look back on and I, my life mattered.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, last thing before we go, where would you, and everything's going to be in the show notes as well, but why don't you share where you would like viewers and listeners to go to learn more about Nana's books?
You can go to nanasbookseries.com at any time. You can reach out to me at nanasbookseries@gmail.com. You'll get me. I'm a sole proprietor and I'm happy to talk with you and answer your questions. And really check out the series. In the show notes, there are links to a couple of articles. One that was just done by Dementia Spring regarding Nana's books and the arts. One was done by the Alzheimer's Foundation of America regarding this type of engagement, enhanced engagement with your loved one and with your community. And I really just hope people will look to resources like Mirador, like Nana's books. And there's just so much more coming. And, it's the digital divide. Yes, it's here, but we've got print books for people that love their print books, as well as the digital library. And in a rise, with tech and a lot of the passive engagement things that are really coming on strong, and they're wonderful things that are out there right now. This active engagement with people, the misconception is that this will add to care burden or staff burden. No, people can enjoy these books independently on their own to the degree to which they want to and can engage with it, and they can share it, and they've got that sense of ownership and that autonomy, and they can self-select, and they've got that agency again. These books are really, really easy connection.
Yeah. Well, Laurette Klier, founder of Nana's Books and a good friend, thank you so much for your time today and looking forward to our upcoming series.
Me too, Lance. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I will talk to you soon.
All right, Laurette. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Laurette Klier for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.